So the book Viksit Bharat at the rate 2047, you talk about progress from the very holistic point of view. I think all said and done, in India, there's a huge rift between the rich and the poor. And I think corruption is also one of the main causes, it's the root cause. So I want to know, as an intellectual, what kind of reforms can the government really put in order to do away with this, the biggest problem that we have?
So, there are a few things here, Nidhi. The way, the development and was planned in India since Honorable Prime Minister took over. So the first was to do the big structural reforms, which is GST, insolvency, banking code, etc. Once that is done, now the government is actively working on what it calls process reforms. Because most of our laws are archaic and old. There are a lot of detailed rules, regulations, where there is a lot of subjectivity and gray areas. So my personal belief is that this was done by design. In 70 years, this was done by design. This is not something that's happened randomly. So by design, this subjectivity, opaqueness was put in, so one could do what is a polite term for corruption, rent seeking. So, the rent seeking could be done. The government is seized of the matter, and there are teams actually now going line by line through all these rules, regulations, slowly cleaning them out. Another big problem was, entrepreneurship was stifled because every rule, regulation, if you violated, the owner or promoter of that company could be jailed. Criminal prosecution. Who will do business if for everything you can go to jail? So even these are being done away with. There is something called the Jan Vishwas Act, which the government bought to enhance ease of doing business, removing a lot of these criminal provisions in the law. So that is the kind of work that's happening.
Yeah, thank you for telling us about the Jan Vishwas Act. It's a very tangible thing that the government is going to actually take away this deep-rooted issue that we have.
I'm again wearing my curious hat. If we look at capital investment in India, which इसको basic भाषा में gross fixed capital formation कहते हैं, capital investment total, 2010-11 के around it was private capital investment total capex का 50 to 60% रहता था. अभी हम आए तो although it has improved a bit, but it is around 30% of the total investment. So in your view, what is holding go big on capex in India as compared to the total capital expenditure?
Kanishki, I'm always scared to speak with economists, but
I'm not an economist
I'll cross-check the data, but broadly what's happening, there's a huge capex expenditure now from the government.
Yeah,
we've had record expenditure on infrastructure. This is all done to boost business, and boost the economy. Because every rupee spent on infrastructure has a 3 to 4x multiplier effect in the economy. And these things only the government can do. Private enterprise can't build highways and railways and airports and things like that. A lot of this push has to come from government. So I think that percentage may be seeing a drop only because of that. But otherwise, business is really pushing hard.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is government capital expenditure is more preferable right now as compared to the private capital.
It has increased so much, so that's why yours must be looking
the
that the percentage has dropped.
Okay, the percentage is
I'm
dropped.
pretty sure that the gross amount will be higher.
Yeah, obviously.
But as a percentage,
gross
it might
amount
be,
is gross
I'll have to
amount
check, but that's why the percentage might be lower.
So do you think that's a problem or it's a good thing right now?
I don't think so, because corporates go through cycles, of capex and investment. So I don't think there is anything, worrisome in that respect.
Okay, that's really nice. Coming back to the book, sir, you've given a very good blueprint, which is data-driven, about, India becoming a $30 trillion economy in 2047. So can you please highlight, or can you please tell us about a case study from the book that kind of translates policy into something tangible that is being done for the ordinary citizens?
I think one of the shining examples is the DBT, direct benefit transfer. each time I look at those numbers and data, I think I'm reading some zeros wrong, you know. The data is so large. I think the last number I know, DBT, direct benefit transfer directly to people's accounts, has crossed 48 lakh crores. You know, then if you look at our digital public infrastructure, UPI payments are increasing daily. You know, they've crossed some huge numbers. If I'm not mistaken, October, there were more than 20 billion transactions with a B. So it's astronomical. I think India today handles about 35% or 40% of global digital transactions. That's the scale, and you know, we see it in all our lives. So these things are definitely happening. One thing here, Nidhi ji, I just wanted to tell, like a lot of people ask, you know, where these numbers are coming from. I always find it's difficult to comprehend large numbers. So in one section in the book, I've also tried to explain what is the mathematics of this $30 trillion economy that I talk about. Just also to step back and give a context. Today, you know, the definition of a developed country comes from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, or the World Bank. And today it is at something like 15,000 US dollars, 1.5. So that's how you're classified as a developed country. So to reach that, the kind of, data shows that we will hit these targets in the next 20, 22 years. That's why it coincides with India's 100th anniversary of its independence by 2047. So I just tried to break that down simply for more the students, etc. In one section I call the mathematics of a $30 trillion economy. Today, to give you a context, we are at about $4.3 trillion US dollars. And to get to 30, you know, it needs a compounded annual growth rate of 9.2%. This is also real growth. And if you delete inflation from it, this is nominal growth. If you delete inflation, it gives you the real growth. So today, you know, just net, even with these geopolitical climate today and the global headwinds, India is still growing at a rate that can meet these targets. So that's what it's trying to show. In fact, in a much simpler manner, sometimes I give the analogy of a T20 cricket match, where all I'm trying to show with these numbers is that, yes, what the targets are, the required run rate is quite reasonable. It's not like we need 20, 30 runs and over to win the match. It's a very simple, maybe 6, 7 runs and over that's required to win this match, obviously consistently, provided, nothing drastic happens. And, this kind of thought process of the leadership, the policies they are following remain unchanged. It's a reasonable target that can be met. And also other countries have done this. There are many naysayers saying, how can this be done? So even other countries, whether it's China, Japan, Korea, have done this. In fact, they've done it at a higher required run rate and for a longer period of time.